Hi everyone, thanks for tuning into this talk. I'm James and we're going to be talking about how to send email your users will act on. So thanks so much in advance just for choosing to watch this talk. Feel like Foti, Jessica, everyone on the Growth Mentor team's been doing an amazing job with the summit this week. So it's a pleasure to be a part of it. Let's get stuck into this talk. So hopefully you're here to learn a bit about sending better email, I'm really keen to just share with you what I've been learning throughout my career. I don't know if we'll have any huge takeaways, but I think what's really important is we get back to basics and just talk about some of the real fundamentals here, and hopefully that's a good solid base to build on. So just in terms of this talk, I thought it'd be good to break it down, just give you a little idea of what we're going to be chatting about. So first of all, just a bit of background on me, just so you know who I am and what angle I'm coming at things from. And then I always think it really helps to sort of, rather than jumping too quickly into talking about what we're going to do, like talking about why we're even on this topic and what the problems are around sending suboptimal emails, sending emails that are not that great, and just understanding how that affects both our customers, users, but also affects our businesses too. And then sort of the juicy bit of the talk, we'll talk about how to send better emails, and just I'll try and drop as many thoughts and ideas and inspiration as possible, and things that we've learned from hard lessons along the way, mistakes we've made and what we've learned from them. And then step 4, we'll look at a few examples of some decent emails out there, and how various companies are using some of these tips to great effect. And then 5, we'll just recap, and you can go off and send way better emails yourselves. So yeah, let's dive in. So who am I? That is me, and this is me. I am co-founder of a company called GoSquared. GoSquared is a platform that helps you grow your software company online. We bring together a lot of different tools under one roof, so you can use GoSquared really for everything from understanding who's coming to your site with our analytics product, through to engaging those people on your site with our live chat, and then gathering all of that information together in our customer data hub. And then what's really exciting, sending smarter, more personalized messages, emails, based off of all that rich data you've got in the platform. We've got about 1,000 customers now. We integrate with a bunch of the off-the-shelf tools out there, and hopefully anyone watching this talk, I know the Growth Mentor audience are kind of the sweet spot for customers of ours. So hopefully anyone who's watching, who's intrigued, check it out. We have some customers. That's good. I guess one of the key things about this talk, anyone watching this wants to send better messages, wants to send better emails. We're working on a really exciting new product. It's kind of been born out of a lot of feedback we've heard from our customers and our own desires for a better product in this space. So if you want to learn more about what we're doing in the marketing automation space, reach out to me after this, and please feel free to ping me. I'd be more than happy to chat and get your take on things. I'll leave my details at the end as well. That's pretty much. One more thing. I know with the Growth Mentor thing, Foti really encouraged us to give stuff away. I think you can get like a free ebook if you're watching this talk, but also you're entered into like a prize draw thing to get a discount. So if anyone, if anyone's watching this talk, one of you is going to win half price GoSquared for at least 1 month, I think. That's exciting, and can't wait to have more of you on board. Cool. So you'll be pleased to know that's all I'm going to say about myself and GoSquared. What we're really going to dive into now, though, is talking about what we're here to look at, which is emails. The problem with email today is we all have inboxes like this. This is a screenshot from my inbox this morning. Absolutely crowded, and this is a quiet day, I'd say. Full of messages, nonsense from all sorts of people. some gems in there, but we are all overwhelmed by too much communication. And this is just my email inbox, when you're thinking about consumers. Don't think about consumers. When you think about yourself, you are a consumer. You've got hundreds of emails coming in. You've probably got something going on Twitter. You've got your team stuff on Slack. You've probably got your company email inbox as well. You've probably got WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger, iMessage. You've got an overabundance of stuff hitting you day in, day out. And not to mention Instagram. Everything's competing with Instagram. But in many ways, just thinking about email, we are all overwhelmed. None of us have much time for any one email. And this has changed dramatically in even the last few years. But if you rewind like 10 years, when you got an email, you could give it a lot more time. These days, you barely have time to read half of a subject line. So we're just living in this world where we're over communicated to, and I think when we're, as creators, as business people, as marketers, just framing everything around that, like, we can spend a lot of time on a specific email, but we shouldn't make ourselves think for 1 minute that the people reading that will have anywhere near the level of time we've put into crafting it. They're going to have probably fractions of a second to even consider consuming any content we produce. So it emphasizes why we have to be so good with the emails we do send, and so careful with the emails we do send. And that's kind of what we're going to be talking about. I've already kind of said this, but yeah, we're all getting too many emails, but we're also, as businesses, generally sending too many emails, and we are part of the problem. It's way too easy to just try and engage users, try and tell users about stuff, try and engage with customers for anything here, there, and everywhere with emails, and we're only adding to that noise and adding to that mix to the point where even from one business you can send so many emails to a customer that you don't even know what they've seen and what they haven't seen, let alone them having an idea of where they're at. So I think this is something we need to get away from. We need to be both sending less email and receiving less email. All of this leads to, though, when we're, as a business, when we're sending too many emails, is, we might have onboarding campaigns, we might have automated messages that are triggered by our product if we're in the SaaS space, or if we're an e-commerce business, we might have automated transactional notifications. We might also have, if we are a slightly higher value, higher touch software product, might even be some personal email coming from sales team or founders reaching out to high value customers. So before you know it, you've got potentially many emails being sent on one day if you're not careful. And all of this leads to just really low open rates, really low click-through rates. It's just common sense that if you've got 10 emails, you're probably not going to give any of them any time. If you read any of them, are you going to click through to them? Highly unlikely. And what can also happen is, especially in the beginning of a customer journey, if someone's just signed up to your 14-day trial and they get like 5 emails in the first 6 hours, if that was me, I'm going to unsubscribe. And it's a surefire way to just totally reduce the engagement you have with your audience over email, and before you know it, you're losing subscribers, you're losing user base, you're losing an audience that you can proactively reach out to via email, and so it pushes you into other channels. So I guess the takeaway from all of this is sending less email and sending better email is critical. So that nicely tees us up to talk about how we can send better email. And I guess the first thing is sending less email. But let's pause a sec. Pause icon, nice. And just think, we've got a lot of emails coming out of our business probably already. I'm looking at our own business, and we're sending a bunch of emails, and it's often hard for any one person in the business, especially if you're more than a few people, to have a good grasp of what each message is doing, what the purpose is, who wrote it, is it still relevant, where does it sit. So I think it's just a really, really basic one, but really getting back to the fundamentals of looking at any emails you're currently sending out and just asking yourself, your team, why are you sending that email? And really evaluating what you're currently doing, and doing that before you even think about starting to send a new, say, drip sequence, onboarding sequence. Because if you don't evaluate and review and sort of do an assessment of what you're already sending out, you're only going to be adding more in. And if you're doing that, you're going to be running a high risk of bombarding users. So a couple of things to bear in mind, like email is not the only channel you can engage with your user base on. I think sometimes we forget that there are other channels out there. And just as a few examples, like you've probably got some sort of tool to do in-app messaging. It's something we have in the GoSquared platform, where you can select who you want to message and you can send a message in-app or in-product, whether that's on mobile, desktop, and engage with people when they're actually logged in and actively using your product. You might also have the option to send an SMS if you collect phone numbers from users. SMS, WhatsApp messaging, Facebook Messenger. There's always an option to engage users beyond the email inbox, and especially for a younger audience, that's just growing and growing in popularity. And then we kind of mentioned high-value SaaS before, but there's also the opportunity of doing real physical mail. And I think sometimes emails are considered like, you know, if you want to deliver something important, you might want to do it over email rather than a text message. But if you want to deliver something really important, you can potentially send it via actual mail. You know, things like a handwritten postcard you see popping up with various services these days. It can be a great way to engage people in an unexpected medium. And then finally, the dreaded phone call, obviously praised by many a high-value software sales team, but let's not forget that's another opportunity to connect with your audience and your user base. And it's worth bearing in mind that email just fits in as one of these channels, and it's not the only one, and it should be used intelligently in combination with all of these. In terms of every single email you're sending out, one of the things that, it sounds so basic, but when you're working in teams, when you're talking with other teams, it's amazing how many times an email goes out the door without asking this really basic question. What is the goal of the email? What is the goal of the email? Like, it's so easy to start with the premise that we're going to send an email when someone becomes a customer. We're going to send an email when someone signs up for the trial. We're going to send an onboarding campaign. But it's so easy to jump into that, start writing some copy, start designing some nice templates, start hooking all the system up without asking this fundamental question. And everything hangs off of this fundamental question, because if you can't answer it clearly for every single message you're sending and every sequence you're sending, then what's the point of any of it? You know, does it make you feel better sending emails to users? Do users feel good receiving emails that don't have a clear purpose? No. So in terms of, and building on that, actually, if you don't have a clear purpose, it's very hard to measure the effectiveness of that email. So these two go hand in hand. If you have a clear purpose for that email, the chances are there's a way you can measure whether or not that outcome you want is happening, and if it is, or it isn't. And so many people default to just, well, we got a good open rate on that email, we got a good click-through rate. Fine, that's fine if you're doing a sort of an email newsletter, but when we're talking about sending, you know, onboarding messages, relevant messages to your user base in a timely manner to drive some form of activity, you need more than open rate and click-through rate to determine the success. You need to know, is that retention email driving people back to the product, and are they sticking with us? Is that new user email pushing people to activate? Is that thank you message when people become a customer driving people to start using our premium features? if you're not thinking about the fundamental purpose, you're not able to measure that ultimate success of the message, and you're only scratching the surface of what you can achieve. So just as a few examples, and I kind of touched on it there, but with your onboarding emails, maybe you've got one email coming out in your trial, or maybe you've got a series of emails that you send out during your trial. What is the goal of those emails? Do they each have a specific goal, or does the whole sequence have a goal of driving someone to do a certain action? It might be that they're all, if you're like us, then those onboarding emails and that onboarding sequence is all about getting someone to activate the core functionality. Are you measuring that well enough? Have you got that clearly defined? Is it clear to everyone on the team that that sequence is driving that specific action and nothing else? It's worth checking. And similarly, what with a thank you email? What is the goal of that? Is it just to make people feel nice, or is it serving a greater purpose of getting people to realize why they become a customer and to drive that value home and to help engage them and retain them? Churn risk, like the number of times you see a shoddy email saying, hey, I haven't seen you in a while, it'd be great if you come back into the product. What is the purpose of that email? Is it to get people to be like, aha, great, I got a lovely churn email, I really miss that company, unsubscribe? Or is the purpose of that email to get you to click through, to engage, to sign back into the product, to see some value, to not cancel your subscription or not let your subscription passively expire? T's and C's updates. In Europe at least, we've had a lot of stuff over the last year or two around GDPR and privacy, and all of these updates have been critical pieces of communication that businesses have to give to their users. But it's worth thinking about emails like that as well as an opportunity, not just to send 5,000 words of legal documentation to your user base, but to provide value, to engage your audience, to show them whether you care about that stuff, and also to ensure that if the recipient needs to accept something or confirm something or action something, that's really, really clear. And the number of those kinds of legal updates are so clearly driven by lawyers who have told people to write them, rather than teams that actually understand why they're sending it and how they can deliver value. You just want to make sure if you're sending emails like that everyone's clear of why you're sending it and what the goal is. Because there's a lot of opportunity if you can get clear on that. Team invites. Again, what's the goal? Like, if you have a service and users can invite their team, is it probably there's a clear goal of that email goes out to that proposed team member. The team member should see that email, they should respond to that email, they should click through, they should onboard into the product, and they should hopefully become an active team member of your product. If you're not thinking it right through to that end goal, then you can only be so certain of how successful that email is doing. Could that email be doing a better job of addressing concerns, objections? It's essentially doing your onboarding for you. And then finally, like product updates. Everyone loves sending out product updates for new things. What is the point? What is the point of that email? Is it to just tell people about a new feature, or is it to get people to go and use that new feature, try it out, and ultimately give you feedback or upgrade for that new feature? Thinking that full funnel through is critical, and if you're doing that and measuring that and have that groundwork in place, that will make such a massive change to the quality of your emails over time. That's the fundamental stuff that's critical. So, just a few other more tactic kind of things. One of the things that we find time and time again, both working with customers and working on our own emails, it's so easy to end up bombarding people with so many options of what they can do with in an email. You might be introducing a new feature, and you might want them to go and check it out, but it might also be a premium feature, and you might want them to upgrade, and you might also want them to log in. The more things you ask someone to do, the less likely they are to do any of them. So keeping your messages focused, and this comes back to that purpose, if you can have that clear purpose of the email, then getting clear on that one call to action is so much easier. And if you can make that one call to action so prominent and so obvious that no one is confused about what that email is asking you to do. Having a text link is okay, but they can get messed up, they can get weird in various email clients. If you can get to a point where you have a nice big fat juicy button with one clear piece of text explaining what you're going to do, then the likelihood of someone clicking that thing is so much higher. Prioritizing mobile design is become essential. Again, over the last few years, not only has mobile device usage increased, the likelihood that someone's reading your email on their phone is considerably higher, to the point where we tend to just assume people are reading our emails on their phone first, and if they're reading on desktop, then sure, that's fine too. But if you think about the thing is, if you separate out being a business from being a customer or consumer, when you think about yourself and your own journey as a customer, as a consumer, and look at your own habits and routines, I know for myself, I try to keep my email closed at work as much as I can. I read my email on the way in the morning, on the train. I read my email at lunch, perhaps. I might read my email on the train home. A lot of that consumption is being done on my mobile device. And if your emails are designed, not just designed for mobile, but designed primarily for mobile with desktop second, I think you'll start to see much higher engagement. You'll be thinking first and foremost about what's the right font size for this on a mobile device, what's the right button size to make sure that button's clicked on mobile, what's the right journey on mobile versus on desktop. Some tricky questions that actually lead to a lot of work needing to be done in terms of user journeys and flows when you think about the consumption and also ultimately people taking action on their mobile devices. And it's just kind of a bit of a mindset change for a lot of people that have perhaps grown up with desktop being the default. A couple of things, I know some of these will probably be quite obvious to a lot of people watching this talk, but sending, especially for software businesses, there's a lot of tools out there that can help you send emails with automation, but it's really important to make sure you're using the quality of engaging with your audience via email. It's only as good as the data you're using to drive those emails that are being triggered. So critical things like when you're onboarding people or thanking them for becoming a customer or engaging in a churn capacity, you want to make sure those messages are being sent at the ideal time. And you also want to make sure they're not being sent on the wrong kind of information. So for instance, you might be very active in a product, but you've been sent a churn email for the wrong reasons. For instance, they weren't tracking something you're actively using. So making sure you're really conscious of the data you're feeding in to trigger your the emails you're sending is critical, and making sure everything's as synced up and real time as possible, because delays can be really alienating. For instance, if you sign in the last 24 hours and are then sent an email asking you to come back into the product, that can be a totally alienating experience, and it can happen very easily if you're using tools that don't, for instance, update in real time. And often a lot of tools use sort of batch processing to update their records on a nightly basis, and that can mess up the whole experience for the end user and lead to bad quality, alienating emails that ultimately lead people to feel slightly disenfranchised. Similarly, the more data you're using to send email, the more fine-grained you can get with who you focus your emails to, and the fewer people you're going to send irrelevant stuff to. So again, it kind of comes back to what we were talking about earlier with regards to sending less emails, sending fewer messages. If you're being a bit more fine-grained, you can make sure you're being really targeted with the emails you're sending, and either sending more targeted emails to everyone and therefore writing and creating many more messages, or just holding back on sending as many emails to certain segments of your audience. The way I kind of look at this is like most of us kind of segment things into, we've got trial users, we've got customers, we've got maybe churn risk, but can you segment your segments? So like, for instance, for us, we have different segments, not just for new users, but new users who are in marketing roles, in companies with sub 10 employees, and we need to make sure these people activate. So we want to make sure they're not activated yet. So getting really, really fine-grained with those segments means you can send really focused, clear-cut messaging. And the challenge then is just in terms of ensuring you can send the right stuff to the right people and orchestrate that across many different segments. Another one is thinking beyond the email. I know we're talking about sending better email, but it's really important to think about how that flow happens. If for instance, if you get an email that is something like, hey, we've got this new feature, try it out, and you open that on your desktop and fine, okay, I click through from the email, I get taken to my desktop web browser. My desktop web browser has my login details, I log straight in, or I'm already logged straight in, get into the product, and boom, I'm in. Great, that's probably the journey that a lot of us think about when we're thinking about sending that email. But what about that mobile experience? Does that mobile experience just get forgotten? Does it matter enough? Perhaps it does. But if someone sees that email on their commute to work and they want to check out the feature, what's the button in that email saying? Is it saying check out the feature? If I hit that button and I get taken to my browser on my phone where I don't remember my login details and the feature doesn't even work on mobile, that's a broken experience, and that might make me think twice about trusting the quality of this product. So thinking about that end-to-end experience, it happens all the time with software companies. Here's a link in an email, take you to the product, and all you see is a login screen. And people wonder why that end-to-end, the outcome of that email was not successful. Has that flow been considered? Are there ways you can get people to see that feature or understand the functionality and increase that motivation without forcing them to log in? Are there other ways you can demo that new feature and not require people to jump through the hurdles that might be required to sign in? There's all sorts of things to think about there, but it's that end-to-end journey that comes back to the purpose of the email that's really important to think about thoroughly. This is another really simple one, but if you think about it, if you're anything like me, I've signed up to a lot of products in my time and tried a lot of things out, and you end up getting a lot of emails from a lot of different services. The number of those services that continue to email me, and I only have so much capacity in my small head, and I have to think about. I get emails from various services. Some of them even sound quite similar to each other. Trying to remember what each service does is very hard. And so you often get, I know I've gotten many emails in the past where I'll get a message saying, oh, your account is about to expire, come back in, reactivate now. But I have literally no idea what that product does. And that's worth bearing in mind, because you may spend a lot of your time engaging with your most active user base, and there's probably a whole large segment of your user base that you don't have much interaction with, that are not as engaged. And if you're not ensuring those people are reminded every time you engage with them what you do, you're missing a massive trick, because every single communication, especially if it's an email interrupting someone's inbox, if it's not clear who it's from or why or what service it is or what that service does, the likely outcome is that user is going to unsubscribe or mark that thing as spam. It's highly unlikely that they will engage and click through. So using every email as an opportunity to remind your audience of what you do, it may seem repetitive in your mind because you're living, breathing what your company does every day, but just a quick one-line description of what your company does, whether it's at the top of the email, at the bottom in the footer. It may be more words, more copy, but trying to keep that there is such a no-brainer. I recommend everyone does it, and sometimes we fall short of that ourselves, and it's something we try and remind ourselves on a regular basis. A few things that I thought would be important to just highlight and not to do. We've talked a lot about tips and tricks for what you can do. This one's pretty well trodden now, but and mostly it's old school businesses that do this anyway. So most software companies already are kind of fine on this. But whatever the message is, make sure you're sending it from an address that can be responded to. There's some exceptions to this, things like maybe certain transactional things that could add confusion. But for the most part, if you're sending invoices, if you're sending onboarding messages, especially if you're sending thank you messages, if you're sending anything where you're kind of asking a user or a customer to do something, it's a really stupid move to be sending it from a no reply address, because if you're doing that, you're basically telling your audience that they don't matter enough, and that if they reply, you're going to ignore it. Whereas from my perspective, you really want those replies. You want to know what people are saying. You want to know if people are responding saying, I can't get this to work. And that's like the lowest friction way for someone in that moment to respond to that message. They're not going to try and click through to your site, go on live chat, and go that route. If they're in their inbox, they've received the message and they've got a question about it, they want to just hit reply. So making sure you're sending it from a no reply, making sure you're sending it from a real human's address, or making it sure it's at least sending to a team address that's listened to and read, is just such a basic one. And also making it more human, showing that it is from someone on the team, is a great way to just make sure people know there's people behind the company, and that people are really keen to get feedback, which hopefully is the case for most companies. It's really easy to end up in the spam folder, even if you're doing things as well as you possibly can. This kind of comes back to some things we were talking about earlier in terms of sending less email. If you are sending too many emails, if you're sending anyone too many emails, they have kind of two options, maybe three options. They can put up with it, highly unlikely. They can unsubscribe, and so you won't be able to message them again. Worst case scenarios, they mark you as spam. If they mark you as spam, that doesn't just affect your one email there, that can affect your overall reputation as a company. If you're doing that too much, then you're going to end up really struggling to get high open rates for any of your messages, because you'll start seeing services like Gmail, Outlook marking your messages as spam, because you're an untrusted domain, untrusted email sender. So there's a few things to really look out for. One is making sure you're being really, really focused on who you're sending those messages to, making sure you're sending relevant messages, but also just making sure you're really conscious when you're sending things, especially things like promotions and offers. It can be really easy to get into hot water in terms of the terminology you use. You know, if you're offering free offers and promotions and discounts off, some of that terminology can look quite spammy, and if you're doing that too regularly, it doesn't affect your spam reputation terribly positively. There's quite a lot you can read out there on the specifics, and it's a really delicate, it's definitely more of an art than a science, because it's not clear exactly how Gmail, Outlook, different providers define a specific email versus a specific IP range versus a specific email sender as spam. But it's hard not to be too careful on this stuff, and it's finding the right balance when you're writing and creating emails that is both engaging and exciting for the recipient, but also not too spammy that the automatic rules might perceive the message in the wrong light. At the end of the day, if you're focused on really good outcomes for your users, your audience, and you're focused on getting open rates, click-through rates up, then that's the thing to focus on. And if you keep focusing on that, then you're going to stay out of the spam folder. Very much in line with that, don't hide the unsubscribe link in the emails you send. There might, every now and again, you hear a justification for it, but hiding the unsubscribe link is a very quick route to getting people to hit the spam, mark as spam button in their email client. The other thing to bear in mind is an unsubscribe is not the end of the world. If someone unsubscribes, if anything, I would view that as not as a maybe not a positive thing, but it's far more positive than someone marking you as spam. If someone marks you as spam, then that has repercussions beyond just that specific person. It impacts your whole reputation as a sender. Whereas if someone's unsubscribing, they're simply saying, I don't want these emails for now. That doesn't mean they're checking out totally from your company. They may still follow you on Twitter. They may still log into your mobile app. They may still get push notifications from there. They may still, I don't know, turn up to your events. But one thing to just bear in mind is making that unsubscribe link easy to click, easy to see, a one-click thing, no messy kind of confusing trickery to try and get someone to accidentally opt into all your emails again. Just make it simple. Unsubscribe, one click, done. If they're hitting unsubscribe in your email, they're going to get taken to a web page to confirm it, most likely. That page is a great opportunity to engage someone on those other channels if you feel like it. So it's kind of that typical blank space in your product that might, or on your site that might get forgotten about. But it's an opportunity to engage someone and perhaps suggest they follow you on a different channel that's more convenient for them. Yeah, we already touched on this as well, but making sure in your messages, if you've got one clear call to action, don't mess it up by adding 3 clear calls to action, because 3, 4, or 5 calls to action is not going to get someone to click through confidently. Just as in a shop, if you got 5 options to choose from, you might well end up deciding, I'm going to go away and think about it. If that happens in your email inbox, people don't come back. So making sure you really do ask for one thing and keep it focused. That's just another real basic one. A few examples, I thought, this is kind of like the final section, really. Looking at a few examples of great emails out there. I think I've got 5 examples, even though there's a number 4 there, because it's the 4th section, just to confuse things. We all know Slack. Slack is great, but they do a great job when introducing new features. And really the thing I wanted to focus on here is that call to action. They're exactly doing it right. Very clearly worded call to action that takes you into the product. It's been well considered both on mobile and on desktop. There's not too much text. It's very easy to read. Very consistent wording from the subject line through to the text in the email itself, and nice visuals. The only thing I would criticize Slack for here is they're sending it from a no reply, which seems crazy given Slack is meant to be all about connecting people. So opportunity to improve there, but hey, we can't have it all sometimes. Another company I really like, Framer. They build software for design prototyping. They are obsessive with their visuals, their aesthetics. I kind of had to feature them in here because their emails are always so beautifully produced. Great font size, line height, typography, so that it's very easy to read both on desktop and on mobile. And then they're telling you about a new course they've got with one clear call to action. Also, I wanted to emphasize how simple their email is. So there's no confusing text in the footer. They've got one clear unsubscribe link, which does that in one click. It's just really nice, really clean. You'll notice also that with a lot of services, if you're using the right tools, the unsubscribe link can be put into your email client by default. So that's another way just to put the recipient in control. Don't be afraid of it. At the end of the day, it builds trust, and you can always win people back. If you got someone onto your email list in the first place, they choose to unsubscribe, you can win them back. Stripe, I've deleted the information here from who this was from, but Stripe uses their payment, successful payment notifications as an opportunity to get you back into the product. This is a nice way to just keep re-engaging people, clear call to action, and just a really slick, clean email that works great on mobile and on desktop. Just really simple, really obvious, really nicely done. Another product I love, Ghost, the blogging platform. I love that when they bill you, they don't just send you a bill. They use it as an opportunity to tell you about what's changing in the product, to remind you why you're paying for the product over getting it for free. So they've got a really nice email, and I think sometimes some months they give you a rundown of like what's changed since your last bill. So it's just every time they're billing you, they're reassuring you of why you're a customer. It just makes you feel good for continuing to pay that, what is it, like $10 a month. So, and also great to see it comes from, I think, Sarah at Ghost. You can reply to that, you can engage and have a conversation. So very human and treats you with respect. Funny, so LinkedIn, obviously not always known as being the most design-obsessed company, and I definitely would love to see an improved visuals on this email. But one of the things I wanted to underline is just how effectively LinkedIn engages you and can drive you back into the product. Compared to a lot of emails you get where they're quite lazy really and saying, you haven't been online for like 3 weeks, we miss you, come back. I think trying to deliver value in anything you send to your users, your audience, is important. If you're asking someone to take even 5 seconds to engage with you online, like, you've got to be clear on what value you're bringing. And these emails are so powerful in terms of communicating why you should come back into the LinkedIn product, and they give you the right amount of intrigue without giving everything away to drive you to pique your interest and to ultimately click through and get back into the LinkedIn product. And before you know it, you're spending 10 minutes scrolling through your LinkedIn feed, wondering how you got there. So very effective emails from LinkedIn, and you can bet your bottom dollar that they've tested and iterated this to the cows come home. So, so a good email there, in my opinion, from LinkedIn, even if it could look a bit better. Finally, just to recap, really, hopefully this has all been helpful, but thought it'd be good to just recap some of the basics that we've gone over in this talk. So I think we've rounded this point home. Be crystal clear on the goal of every single email you're sending. Make sure you've got one call to action and one call to action only, if at all possible, in your emails, and then you stand a high chance of people clicking through and doing what you want them to do. No matter how focused you feel you're being in terms of segmentation of your user base right now, get more fine-grained, and then try and make sure you're segmenting your segments so you can be as focused and personalized as possible. Make sure you're sending messages in real time and based on the behavior of users and tracking that as accurately as possible. The more accurately you can do that, the more effective those messages can be. Make sure you're designing things for mobile. So important in this day and age, and it's not going to change anytime soon. That's only going to become more and more critical. Be human. Don't use no reply if you can avoid it. Make sure you're sending stuff from real people. And finally, just in every email you're sending, every message you're doing, everything you're doing really, make sure you're delivering value to your user base, your customer base, your audience, and then everyone wins. So those are all the key points, I think. Just a reminder again, we're working on a product here that hopefully will help you send better email and messages to your user base, your audience. We really are excited. We've got a bunch of people using this right now and giving us a ton of feedback. We'd love to have more of you on board. If you're interested, if you're looking for a product to help you send better email to your user base, I would love to talk to you. Please do reach out after this, and I'd love to have a chat. And in terms of reaching out, you can do that by pinging me an email or reaching out to me on Twitter. So hopefully this talk has all been helpful. thank you so much for watching. It's been a pleasure, and yeah, hopefully see you around. Cheers. Thanks, everyone.